Okay, namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's do the prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhava Swaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto ma satgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityorma amritam gamya. Om sahna bhavatu, sahna bhunaktu, sahviryam karvavahi, tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahi. Om shanti shanti shanti. So Tuesdays we are studying Bhaj Govindam, very small book written by Adi Shankaracharya ji. And we have gone through the first 6 verses. So let me just quickly read the English translations so that you know what is the thought process over here we should have. Only then we'll have the experience. So the beauty of Bhaj Govindam is you can just keep on reciting, keep on understanding just one verse if you want to. And you can skip the next verse and still understand what is happening. So that's why some people recite all 31, some people recite 15, some people recite 20. So it doesn't even matter. Each verse by itself is full of great wisdom. Okay, so I just want to go through these first 6 with you, where Adi Shankaracharya ji says, seek Govind, seek Govind, seek Govind. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. Govindam Bhaj Moodmate. Oh fool. So if we are not seeking God and we are seeking the world, he says you are a fool. That's a moodmati. When the appointed time comes, that means death, the grammar rules, and we talked about that, that means all this secular knowledge surely will not save you. Secular knowledge helps us in this secular world. So the sacred knowledge, for sacred knowledge, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. Okay. So then he says, O fool, give up the thirst to possess wealth. And he's talking about the material wealth. Create in your mind, devoid of passions, thoughts of the reality. That means the essence. With whatever you get. That means whatever you get in this material world as a reward of the past, be content. Be content with your prarabdha. Don't just keep on running after the material wealth. Then in verse number 3, he says, seeing the full bosom of young maidens and their navel. So that means the bodily lust. Do not fall a prey to maddening delusion. This is but a modification of flesh and fat. Think well in your mind again and again. Barambar. Because this mind of ours does not listen to us just doing something once. Barambar. We got to repeat this in our mind that I don't want to live a life of lust. Then in verse number 4, he says, the water drop playing on a lotus petal has an extremely uncertain existence. And I'm sure you all have seen lotus petals, or at least you can imagine how slippery the lotus petals are and how easily the water can slip out. He says, so also the life is unstable. And we see that, we hear that, we know that, so we got to believe in it. Understand the very world is consumed by disease and conceit. Vyadhi abhiman grastam, and is riddled with pangs. Lokam shok hatam chasmasta. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. Very clearly, he is painting a picture of this material world for us. Then verse number 5, he says, as long as there is the ability to earn and save, so long are all your dependents attached to you. When you can give them something, they are attached to you. Later on, when you come to live with an old, infirm body, no one at home cares to speak even a word with you. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. The reality. We might fool ourselves that no, our family is not like that. Or our friends are not like that. But remember, at least remember this, even if you don't want to look at the negative part of this world, look at the positive part of God. That's where all the joy is coming from. I want to just remember God. Bhaj Govindam. Then number 6 we did. As long as there dwells breath in the body, the pran. He says, Yavat pavno nivasati dehe. As long as there dwells breath in the body, so long they inquire of your welfare at home. And we know this. Once the life leaves, the body decays. Even the wife fears that very same body. So the very close relationships also. That body, we are afraid of them. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. So this is where we ended our last week's class. Okay? So whichever verse hits you, I would say memorize it and try to sing it. Because whatever we say from our mouth, ultimately, the essence of that reaches our mind. Okay? So whatever verse or whatever part of the verse it's dear to you, if it really hits home, I would say do that. You don't have to memorize all 31 verses. Now let's look at verse number 7. baalastaavatkriiDaasaktaH, taruNastaavattaruNiisaktaH, vRiddhastaavachchintaasaktaH, brahmaNi ko.api na saktaH. Baalastaavatt. Bal is a childhood. So long as one is in his childhood. Krida, towards play. Like a to play. Krida. Asakta, attached. taruNastaavatt. Tarunavastha is a youth avastha. So first we were children, child, bal, then tarun. So taruNastaavatt, so long as one is in youth. Tarunihi, towards passion. Passion towards the other person. saktaH, attached. Vriddhastaavatt, so long as one is old. Chintaya, anxiety, stress, worry. AsaktaH, attached. Pare, to the supreme. brahmaNi, Brahm. Ka.api, anyone. Ko.api na, no one is sane. saktaH, attached. So he's saying, so long as one is in one's boyhood, childhood, one is attached to play. So long as one is in youth, one is attached to one's young woman, young man, another person, lust, passion. So long as one is in old age, one is attached to anxiety, hangs. Yet, he says, no one, alas, to the Supreme Brahm is ever seen attached. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. In the childhood, we thought that life is very long. But as time keeps on passing, we know that indeed life is short. Life is a pilgrimage. And this reality is being veiled for us. We just get tied down to the passing sorceries of the flesh in the world. We get deluded by the passion. We get enchanted by the toys. How much enchantment towards the gold and the jewel and the clothes and the friends, to the name and the fame. But when we get older, even then, mind is still attached, but then there's anxiety. Youthful lust or drunkenness with the passion, sure, it goes away. Because when body is becoming weak, there's a fatigue. When a person tumbles down into the bottomless sorrows of this weak body, this is what teacher is saying. This is the universal folly of a human being. So he's very chronologically following the autobiographical story of a human being here. Childhood, youth, and old age. So childhood days are wasted in his attachment with the toys. Games. Very natural. We say children, they are supposed to play. It's their time to play. But as a person grows up, the youthful energies, they are dissipated in his passion for the beloved. Lusty sports. But as the age gathers upon him, cannot even control the body anymore, gray hair, anxieties and the fears, they come in. So we can see that attachment to one thing or the other never gave any chance or finding the time to attach himself to the Supreme. Neither in the childhood, nor in the youth, nor in the old age. So that's what he's saying, play, passion, and pang. These seem to be the three common boundaries in every thoughtless man's life. I'm not talking about the wise people. There are some wise people, some intelligent people, some even children, they understand it, how important the name of God or attachment to the God is. But he's talking about the majority of the people. He's talking about the masses. So when the evening of life comes, his worries, anxieties regarding himself and on the dependents. So strange enough, even at that time, because if you have not worked on it in the earlier years, old age will not help. Because often I hear people saying, when we get old, when we get retired. No. Today is the time to start. Right now is the time. This is the moment. Because the extreme sense of attachment is the world is to be given up intelligently. We got to use our intellect, and that's what Lord Krishna called a Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi is the one which really decides So we got to work on this decision-making faculty of ours. And this decision we have to make that this world is temporary. And the Supreme, that is my permanent relationship. Sure, there are goals in life. There's a small purposes in life too. Sure, we have to do that. But not at the cost of the ultimate purpose of life. Because otherwise, extrovertedness is very natural to all living creatures. These senses, they just take us into the external world. But in a human being, this is very inexcusable. That my senses, I have the senses, they need to go out. God has given us the higher intellect also. We got to use that. Intellect should be guiding the mind, and the mind should be guiding the senses. That's how we are supposed to live our life. Because the other creatures, they live as a commissioned by their instincts. But we have the freedom to rationally judge our own inclinations, our own temperaments, our own tendencies. We can reject them or we can accept them, depending upon where it's taking us. That's why we got to keep on working on our intellect. Because otherwise, these senses of ours, they can take us to the foolish place, and they do, and the dangerous place. Keep on wasting our time. Keep on wasting this beautiful life of ours. So it is in this special aspect that man is considered, a human being is considered at the crown of this creation. We are at the crown. Okay? So we need to use all our senses well, and we got to raise ourselves to the highest perfection. Because otherwise this life keeps on slipping away. As they say, it's ebbing away. And we don't use any time to think about him, to be grateful to him, to be at the service of the Supreme. We think we'll do it some other day. Katha Upanishad, that is another Upanishad which we are going to start pretty soon in our Thursday classes. Over there, there's a very clear indication made by the Rishi, where he says that Creator has made sense organs turned outwardly. That's why a man lives generally at the sense level, can feel a sense of fulfillment only in the sense indulgences. He's talking about the average man. Then he says it's only some rare one. There are people, but percentage is very small. This is that Rishi is saying, Rishi's words. It is only some rare one who, desiring to realize the highest, withdraw themselves from the preoccupations of the senses and seek the changeless and the immutable. Do we want to be those rare ones or not? So majority of the people, they are definitely, and what happens, sometimes we think that whatever majority is doing, that's right. We love to follow the crowds. But these rishis, they tell us only rare, very few people are achieving that goal. So to be attached to the Lord is to learn to withdraw from the usual fields of pain-ridden sorrows. When we run towards the world, there is a pain. There are very shocking losses. But we think, no, this time it's a loss, maybe next time it won't be. But these rishis, they say, turn to God, attach yourself to him. By this attachment to the Supreme, you can bring the efficient detachment from the ever-changing realms of objects. Otherwise, very hard to detach from this world. Temptations are too strong. But when we attach to the highest, this looks very weak, very superficial. Okay, so this is basically what he is saying to us, that he is urging very strongly. He says, so long as one is in one's boyhood, one is attached to play. So long as one is in youth, attached to one's passion, lust. So long as one is on old age, attached to anxiety. No one, alas, to the Supreme Brahman is ever seen attached. So that's why at the end he says, Bhaj Govindam, do get attached. Do get attached. Do not waste your time. Do not waste another beautiful human life. We don't know when we'll get this chance again to come into a human form. We don't know. There's no guarantee. We don't know what kind of a sanchit karams we have in our karmashya. So right now we are in a human body. So we got to choose the right direction. Kaate kaantaa, kaate putraH, saMsaaro.ayamatiiva vichitraH, kasya tvaM, kuta aayaataH, tvaM chintaya, tadiha bhraataH. Ka means who is, te means your, kaantaa wife. Ka means who is, te means your putraH, son. saMsaaro.ayam, this samsara, atiiva, supremely, vichitraH, wonderful, kasya, of whom, tvaM, you, ka, who are, so like a ka tvaM means who are you, kuta, where, aayaataH, have come, tattvaM, of that truth, chintaya, think, tadiha, tad means that, ih means here, bhraataH. See, there are two ways it's written. Sometimes bhraataH, like a brother, or bhraataH, like a delusion. Either way you can look at it. So he says, who is your wife? Okay, for a woman, we can say, who is your husband? So it's like that kind of a close relationship. Who is your son or a daughter? Your children. Supremely wonderful indeed is this samsara. Of whom are you? From where have you come? Oh brother, think of that truth here. So he's putting these questions to us, to serious thinkers. Because there's no denying the fact that this institution of a family, a home, there are bonds, there are family relationships. We do benefit from those relationships. Some places we give the comfort, we support them. And on the other hand, we are being supported by others and being comforted by others. But there's a lot of egocentric selfishness. And yet, they themselves are, even at their best, very limited. Very limited. Sure, in this few decades, there is a help. Two people living together, mutual love. Sure, they respect each other. They can grow up to at a dignified status of a father and a mother. They do learn from each other. He's not putting these relationships down. He's not saying that we should not have the relationships, but we should not forget who is our ultimate father and the mother and the brother and the sister and the bandhu. We sing that every day. If you follow the Hindu Aarti, twice a day we do it. At the end, what do we say? tvaM mata cha pita tvaM, tvaM bandhuscha sakha tvaM. We sing that. That's what we say. And that's exactly what he's saying over here. So this mutual association in the relationships, that's important. Togetherness is important. But we got to not forget the ultimate relationship. So we should live harmoniously. But our rishis, they insist. Let there be a space between the two, between the husband and a wife also. There has to be a space. Let there be no clinging attachment to each other, which is very unhealthy to both. There should be a room to grow. We are here to grow spiritually. So there should be a room. Help each other, love each other, take care of each other. But then there should be an ultimate purpose is to grow spiritually. So that's why I said this clinging attachment to each other should not be. There's a big difference between love and this clinging attachment. And often we don't understand it. So family is the field of trial and test. That's where we can grow into healthier personalities. That's why the second stage in life, which is called a Grihastha, that's when we really get to know our weaknesses and our strengths. We are really working on our mind. We are working on our, not only the passions alone, but how we can live in this life without getting attached to all this. We learn how to control our anger, jealousies in our Grihastha. It's a very important phase in life. But it's not in itself the final destination. From Grihastha, our rishis, they say you got to move into the Vanaprastha. Then from Vanaprastha, you got to move into the Sannyasa. That is an intelligent way of living. Live life with the detachment at home. This home life is a schooling. It's a college time. Do not mistake it as life's main fields of achievements. These days, we don't want to let it go. We want to be householder towards the end. If we can remember that, no, this is a journey and we got to move into the next stage, then life becomes beautiful. Then you are not attached. To live in attachment and to sink into the family seems to be very natural for human beings. But this is very unhealthy according to our Vedic philosophy. And that's why, see, it's not just a philosophy. If philosophy only just tells you this, what it is. This Vedic philosophy, they prescribe a technique. This technique, if we apply, we can grow into a required state of detachment. And this technique is being described here. Intelligently inquire into the antidote for the follies of delusion. That's what he's telling us in this verse itself. When he says, kaate kaantaa, kaate putraH. All that what he's telling us, inquire into it, reflect upon these truths. So method of inquiry to be adopted is being indicated in this verse. Inquire, who is your wife? Or who is your husband? Before you got married, who was that person? Son or a daughter of somebody else? But we just start to be so possessive about that person. It's mine now. You have to inquire about it. Okay, this possessiveness is the one which creates a lot of problems in the families also, but more so, he's talking about spiritually over here. In life, a man and a woman are born independently. And we all know each one of us must die and depart alone. Never forget that truth. This is the inquiry he's talking about. Okay. So in the pilgrimage from birth to death, travel from life to death, at a certain junction, we did meet each other, but no doubt serving each other also, taking care of each other also, because as good-hearted travelers do, they take care of each other. But ultimately, this companionship has to end. Inquire into it. So when we inquire like this, detachment happens automatically. That doesn't mean the love stops. You are still loving. You are caring. In fact, you will care more. Okay? So every relationship. So by this analysis, we should realize and have the right attitude to maintain a very healthy relationship in this world. Okay? Don't try to read in there that he's asking us to just give up the relationships. No, a healthy relationship. And the same thing with our children also. When you analyze the real relationship, you will see that our children, they became our children at the time of the birth. Where were they before? We are custodian of these children for a few decades. That's all. But we want to get so attached to them and we forget our real purpose. Hindu scriptures, they even talk about, they say, before the child was born, it was just a fetus. Before the fetus, it was just a seed. Before the seed, it was just a food. Before the food, it was just a mud. They even go that way deep down. So he's talking about the body itself, not the Atma. Atma is part of God. There's no difference between the Atma and Atma, but we normally get attached to the body. And body was just a mud. So it's just a manifestation from a clod of earth to the fruit, the food, the seed, the fetus, the child. So they say the child is nothing but an effect of the ultimate cause, which is the mud. So this is how these rishis did the analysis, the inquiry. And they say, look at it, how powerful this Maya is. This is the delusion, the Maya. And because of this Maya, you just get attached. And because of this delusion, you forget the real purpose of life. So this empirical life, the samsara, is a fascination only to the thoughtless. How fascinating, how beautiful. We get attached to it. What did he use the word before? Indrajal. Intelligently meditate upon all of this. Inquire, to whom do I belong? To what factor divine does my very existence owe its continuous? Can I continue? Can I keep this body alive without the divinity in me? I can't. That's what he said. It will be a dead filth. Nobody will even touch it. From where have we all come to play the passing show in the field of this world? Think about it. Where was I before? Where are we going? Once we get departed from here, what is our destination? Because this departure will happen. One day it will happen. It has happened to everybody. Somebody said, how many people will die? The other one said, everybody. Everybody. So we got to inquire about the source where we have come and the destination where we are going. And what exactly is our duty right now and here? These are the things we need to keep in mind. Do not forget the duties over here, but where we have come from and where we are going. And what should be our attitude to the things and beings and the infinite happenings that crowd around us while we are here. Think about it, inquire about it. He says, oh brother, please contemplate. Brother. So if you look at this bhraataH, that's a brother. But instead of bhraataH, if we understand, because some teachers, they call it a bhraanta also. So in that one, he says, you are a deluded fool. Don't stay a deluded fool. So if he says bhraataH, that means he's showing that very close relationship to us as an older brother. Wake up, inquire. But then he says, don't stay deluded either. Think properly. Okay, so let me read that again, because to me, I think this these are so deep verses. Sometimes we get fooled by the simple language of it, but these are very, very deep. Who's your wife? Who's your son? Supremely wonderful indeed is this samsara. So he says it's wonderful. So fascinating. Of whom are you? From where have you come? Oh, brother, think of that truth here. Tattva, that truth, that essence. Think about that. And that is God. Okay? Let's look at one more verse. Sat sangatve ni sangatvam ni sangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischal tattvam nischal tattve Jeevan Mukti. Beautiful verse. Beautiful. Sat sangatve, through the company of the good. Sat sang. We have even forgotten what satsang is actually. In the real sense, what a satsang is, the company which takes us, which helps us to know that ultimate reality, that's a satsang. Ni sangatvam, non-attachment. Ni sangatve, through non-attachment. Nirmohatvam, freedom from delusion. Nirmohatve, through the freedom from delusion. Nischal, immutable. tvaM, reality. Nischal tattve, through the immutable reality. Jeevan Mukti, the state of liberated in life. Beautiful, beautiful verse. This is like a in a positive way, how to move towards the highest. Similar to this verse was in Bhagavad Gita, which showed us how we can slip down. If we understand both of these verses, Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 62 and 63, and this verse, we can really understand the philosophy of life. So this verse, first let me tell you, through the company of the good, there arises non-attachment. Through non-attachment, there arises freedom from delusion. When there is a freedom from delusion, there is the immutable reality. On experiencing the immutable reality, there comes the state of liberated in life. Goal is to become Jeevan Mukti. We don't become Mukti or the liberated after we die. While living, we reach there. That's a Jeevan Mukti. So he is telling us how we can do that. And in contrast to where we are going, if we are not following this, what happens? In that Bhagavad Gita verse, when a man thinks of objects, attachment for them arises. Right? That's what happens. We go somewhere, we see something, and we can't even stop thinking about it. From attachment, desire is born. From desire arises anger. You want it, you cannot have it. Anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. From the destruction of discrimination, a person perishes. Just think about it. Which way I want to travel? Going upward or slipping down? This is slipping down. Somebody is asking me to repeat it again. When a person thinks of objects, attachment for them arises. And we are familiar with this. We may not be familiar with the other path, going upward path, but we are very much familiar with the downward path. From attachment, desire is born. From desire arises anger. Sometimes the circumstances, sometimes the person, sometimes even ourselves. Anger. How come I cannot have it? Others have it. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. Discrimination means cannot decide what is right, what is wrong. And from the destruction of discrimination, he perishes. That really means he perishes means he doesn't act like a human being. Human being is the height of this evolution. But if you cannot even use that buddhi, you are not a human being then. So in that sense, he says from the destruction of discrimination, he perishes. So he's not talking about the Atma. Atma never perishes. But you are not behaving like a human being. Don't we sometimes use this word? Somebody who's just so mad, you say, what has happened to you? You don't even act like a human being. We can even look at our own face. When we are angry, go look at the mirror. This face is not the same face as when it's a calm and peaceful. Okay, so over here, this verse number 9, we are going to start from here. I will discuss it deeply, but right now, this week, think about it. Company of the good, non-attachment should arise. If going to the satsang also, we get attached. And this attachment could be with the people. Attachment could be the place. Any kind of attachment which doesn't let us grow. Through non-attachment, there arises freedom from delusion. So this detachment gives us the freedom from Maya. And where there's a freedom from delusion, you see this reality. Reality. Nischal tvaM. This reality which does not change. This reality is the reality always. Truth is one. You really see that, you feel that, you know that truth. And experiencing this reality, because that's what we need to experience, not just only theoretically knowing, not just memorizing it, not singing the praises only, but experiencing From experience, what happens? You are a Jeevan Mukti. Jeevan Mukti. Nischal tattve Jeevan Mukti. So we'll end it over here, but we'll start our next week class from this verse number 9. I got to talk a little bit more about it, but we will. I can only say these things, but we have a wonderful singer over here who can sing this. So you'll all have the benefit of knowing how it is sung also in Sanskrit, these verses. But before that, let me just do this Shanti mantra, and then I'll request Poonam to sing these verses. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Poonam.
Namaste, Hersh.
Namaste. Namaste.
BaalastaavatkriiDaasaktaH. BaalastaavatkriiDaasaktaH. taruNastaavattaruNiisaktaH. taruNastaavattaruNiisaktaH. vRiddhastaavachchintaasaktaH. vRiddhastaavachchintaasaktaH. परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः. परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः. भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. काते कान्ता kaste putraH. काते कान्ता kaste putraH. saMsaaro.ayamatiiva vichitraH. saMsaaro.ayamatiiva vichitraH. kasya tvaM kah kuta aayaataH. kasya tvaM kah kuta aayaataH. tvaM chintaya tadiha bhraataH. tvaM chintaya tadiha bhraataH. bhaj govindam भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. सत्सङ्गात्वे निस्सङ्गात्वं सत्सङ्गात्वे निस्सङ्गात्वं निस्सङ्गात्वे निर्मोहात्वं निस्सङ्गात्वे निर्मोहात्वं निर्मोहात्वे निश्चलतत्व निर्मोहात्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्तिः. निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्तिः. भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं Govindam bhaj moodhamate. Thank you.